Welcome to online class. Myself Dr. Girish, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, Christ Deemed to be University, Bangalore. Today I will be taking my online class on Indian Business Environment Block 2 for first year BCom program of Karnataka State Open University, Manasa Gangotri, Mysore. In this particular block, so there are 3 different units which is covering political environment, social environment and cultural environment of Indian business environment. In unit 1, which covers political environment of business in Indian context, role and functions of government in promoting business policies, fiscal and monetary policy. Here the meaning of political environment. So, the political environment includes all laws, governmental agencies and lobbying groups that influence or restricts individuals or organizations in the society. In our previous block, we discussed about different types of environment, that is internal and external, micro and macro. Further to that is what your unit 2, where which will be discussing more related to these 3 specific environment, that is political environment, where it includes all the laws by the government and government agencies and lobbying groups that influence on restrict individuals or organizations in the society. So, these are the institutions which come under political environment, that is legislature, executive and judiciary. So, all we know that legislature, the most powerful institution, role is to make the law, powers, policy making, law making and approval of budgets, that is through legislature. And the next is executive, referred as to the government, responsible for implementation of laws that was passed in the legislature to shape, direct and control the business activities. And the third one is judiciary, responsible for interpreting and applying law. It has to look into the exercise of authority by the executive in according to the general rules laid down by the legislature and to settle the legal disputes that affects business considerably, that is disputes between the employer and employees, disputes between the 2 different companies, dispute between the employees. In this political environment of business in the Indian context, we discuss more related to the political environment which is prevailing in the country. So, political environment of business in India is shaped by country's democratic framework, regulatory policies and the role of government in economic activities. India operates under the multi-tiered system of government with power distributed between the central government and the various state governments, leading to the complex political landscape. The business environment is influenced by legislative actions, fiscal policies and government regulations which aim to balance economic growth with social welfare. Over the years, India has adopted a mixed economy model where the private sector plays a significant role, but the government remains actively involved in sectors like infrastructure, energy and defense. And political environment of business in the Indian context. So, the policies related to taxation, trade, foreign direct investments and labor laws are constantly evolving to adopt the changing dynamic and global conditions. So, as we know that the business are very dynamic and it is changing for every fraction of second. To cater this, so the policies of taxation, trade, foreign direct investments, labor laws and other technology related things are changing very fastly for meeting the domestic and global conditions. Political stability along with a focus on reforms such as goods and services tax, that is GST, and is Make in India initiatives have been key drivers of business confidence. However, business must also navigate challenges like regional political differences, bureaucratic hurdles, corruption and policy inconsistencies, which can create both opportunities and risk in the Indian market. So, these are the responsibilities of government towards the business. One is provision of peaceful atmosphere. Whoever is doing business within a country, so the government should create a good atmosphere or a peaceful atmosphere to carry out the business. Provision of a system of money and credit facilities for their business, balanced development of growth, the provision of basic infrastructure. So, good infrastructure facilities has to be created to take away the business further, and provision of information to assist small scale industries. So, for any large scale industries, those industries will be dependent on MSME, that is micro, small and medium enterprises. For them a good infrastructure facilities should be created, licensing and inspection should be provided, then protection from the foreign competition should be given for carrying out the smooth business in the country. Then the role and functions of government in promoting the business. So, there are several roles that a government plays, which in turn affects the way business function. Some of these roles have been mentioned below, like regulatory role of government business. So, government regulates the business by introducing the different policies and regulations. The government plays a regulatory role in business, such as setting and enforcing standards for fair competitions. For doing a fair business, we do have standards, and there are policies and regulations to check on this. Fair competition and protecting consumer from fraudulent or deceptive business practices, like MRTP Act is one of the example that which we can keep in mind. Then government also provides opportunities for business to compete with contracts, license and permits. And the government regulatory role ensures that business operate fairly and transparently without engaging in deceptive or unfair practices that could harm any consumers. And the government also sets standards for safety, quality and environmental protection to ensure that business protection or business protect the public interest. Then the government also creates a favorable legal framework for business. For example, so it sets up rules and regulations governing competition, taxation, intellectual property rights and others. Promoter role of government in business. What is the role of government in promoting the business? So, these are the some of the role where government plays in promoting the business, like governments are responsible for promoting the economic growth and development through fiscal and monetary policies. The government must create soundful fiscal policies that provide incentives for business to invest in their operations, with simultaneously balancing the needs of citizens with those of business. So, here government should create a peaceful atmosphere for business to set up by providing the different incentives. That incentives, it could be in the form of subsidies, or it could be in the form of giving the subsidized rate of power supply, water supply, land and other things. The monetary policies must also be created so that inflation is managed and economic stability is maintained. So, that is another responsibility of the government to monitor the monetary policy, and that will not going to affect the price by increasing the inflation. Then it creates an environment conducive to business activity and provides the necessary infrastructure for business operation. So, the government also provides supports to business through various programs and incentives or initiatives. The government's support helps business to start up, expand and modernize. So, that is another initiative by the government to encourage the startups, and those startups, they can expand and they can go for modernizing the business. The government will give certain incentives or subsidies. So, one of the key role of government is to create an enabling environment for business. So, there should be a conducive environment to take up the business. For that, government intervention and government rules, policies, regulations, monetary benefits, monetary policy, fiscal policy plays very vital role. So, this includes the necessary infrastructure. So, we can see that, so certain areas are earmarked as economic zones. So, SEZ we call it as special economic zones, or industrial area or industrial suburb, IT area or industrial valley. So, all these things are very much required. So, the government should create good infrastructure by providing good road connectivity, power supply, water supply and telecommunication. So, when all these things are created, so automatically the business will grow and economy of that country also will grow. And the monetary policies, so central bank, that is RBI, Reserve Bank of India, so is the central bank for our country. So, typically use monetary policy to either stimulate an economy or to check its growth. So, timely intervention by the central bank of a country also helps the business to grow by incentivizing individuals and business to borrow and spend. The monetary policy aims to spur economic activity. So, conversely, by restricting spending and incentivizing the savings, then monetary policy can act as a brake on inflation and other issues associated with the overheated economy. So, monetary policy is more of a blunt tool in terms of expanding and contracting the monetary supply to influence the inflation and growth, and it has less impact on the real economy. For example, so the Fed was aggressive during the Great Depression during those days. So, the Fed, so that is one of the Reserve Bank of USA. So, its action prevented deflation and economic collapse, but did not generate significant economic growth, reverse the lost output and jobs. And the Fed frequently uses three different policy tools to influence the economy. So, that is open market operation, then reserve requirements and discount rate. So, here open market operation, that is open market operations are carried out at a daily basis. When the Fed buys and sells US government bonds to there inject money into the economy or pull money from the circulation. So, that is what the open market operation, which is carried on day to day basis. Then reserve requirements by setting a reserve ratios. So, in our country also we have reserve ratios which is set by the RBI. We call it as repo rate, reverse repo rate, SLR and CRR, or a percentage of deposits that bank are required to keep in reserve. The Fed directly influences the amount of money created when banks make loan. Then discount rate, the Fed also can target changes in the discount rate, which is the interest rate in the charges on loans, and it makes the financial institutions, this tool is intended to impact short term interest rates across the entire economy. So, this is what we call it as the three different policy tools to influence the economy. So, not only in Fed system, even in our Indian system also we use the same, that is open market operation, then reserve requirements and discount rates. Then what is the objective of this monetary policy? The basic objective of this monetary policy is, one is rapid economic growth, price stability. So, to keep a check on inflation as well as deflation of price, then exchange rate stability, that is the fluctuation of the currencies, then balance of payment equilibrium, that it should not be always surplus or deficit of BOP, then neutrality of money and equal income distribution is the main objective of your monetary policy. Then moving to the fiscal policy. Fiscal policy refers to the steps that governments take in order to influence the direction of the economy. So, to promote the business, what kind of incentives, what kind of directions, what kind of encouragement the government is giving for business to take it further. So, but rather than encouraging or restricting spending by businesses and consumers, the fiscal policy aims to target the total level of spending, the total composition of spending, or both in an economy. So, fiscal policy essentially targets aggregate demands. So, the companies also benefit as they see increased revenues. However, if the economy is near full capacity, expansionary fiscal policy risks sparking the inflation. So, the two most widely used means of affecting fiscal policies are, that is government spending policies and government tax policies. The government spending policies, the government can create the amount of money that's spent if they believe there is not enough business activity in an economy. So, this is often referred as stimulus spending. They can borrow money by issuing the debt instruments, means government can issue the bonds or debentures, and through that they borrow the money from the public if there are not enough tax receipts to pay the spending increases. So, when the spending increase of a particular country, so at that time government what they do is, from the public by issuing the bonds and by issuing the debentures, they raise the money and then they will spend. So, allowing them to accumulate the debt. This is referred as a deficit spending. Then government tax policy. So, by increasing the taxes, that is another way where the government can look into the fiscal policy, that is increasing the tax. So, that is government pulls more out of economy and slow business activity. Fiscal policy is typically used when the government seeks to stimulate the economy. So, it might lower tax or offer a tax rebate in an effort to encourage economic growth. So, influencing the economic outcomes via fiscal policy is one of the core tenets of Keynesian economies. Keynesian economies. So, these are the important objectives of this fiscal policy. One is to achieve the desirable price level. then to achieve the desirable consumption level, to achieve the desirable employment level, and to achieve the desirable income distribution and increasing the capital formation. So, by following the proper fiscal policy, so these are the objectives the country can achieve through fiscal policy.